First, I would like to thank the organizing committee for having me. And thank you for putting on such a wonderful and grounded conference. And thank you for coming today, because I know it's difficult after the networking night. So since I'll be talking about half an hour, I want to introduce myself. As I said, Eris, I am Alejandra Ventura. I'm a cybersecurity technician, part of the Intel team at INCIBE. My main focus is on data analysis, but that's what I try in between daily operational tasks. So let's get to the point. This is our agenda for today. I will talk about the what the fetid threat hunting is. We are going to go all the way from why honeypots are useful, and we are talking about we're going to talk about to comment a couple of research cases. So, honeypots. We're talking about threat hunting first. Sorry. What threat hunting is? Threat hunting is the process of actively searching within an environment for evidence of previous undetected attackers. And we are looking, in general, we are looking for anomalous activity that has not been identified for your system toolset by searching through various sources of data. That what can I see on this slide? We are looking for bad thing when we find that bad thing, we need to try to figure it out how to find bad thing faster next time. And the main focus of the threat hunting is to improve your prevention and detection coverage. So what about honeypots? I need to ask you, how many people here have worked with honeypots? Say, hey man, okay. There are a few, so I will try to understand so much at this point. What is a honeypot? It's a security resource whose value lies on being proof, attack, or compromise. A honeypot is designed to interact with attackers to collect techniques and behaviors. We can to learn from honeypots. From what we gather from honeypots. So, since honeypots has no production activity, all connections to and from the honeypot are suspect by nature. And by definition, anytime a connection is made to your honeypot, it's most likely to be an unauthorized proof, scan, or attack. Anytime a honeypot initiates a connection, this most likely means the system was successfully compromised. By no means keep in mind that by no means should honeypots replace your IDS systems or be the sole method detection. Or, however, they can be a powerful tool to complement intrusion detection capabilities. So, why we need to use honeypots? Or why honeypots are useful? As Sun Tzu said, I think he will be a fan of honeypots, because you need to know your enemy. And we have some articles that, for example, what Kaspersky told us. IoT under fire. Kaspersky detected more than 100 million attacks on smart devices just in 2019. And we have this other case that has been discussed recently in the wake of the Cadena Ser attack and others attack. Wing, wing, you know what I'm talking about. So that's we have the Kevin Beamon. In May, he said, "We're gonna build a worldwide blue kit honeypot from scratch." Then, on November 3rd, security researcher Kevin Bittman and Marcus Hutchins identified the first confirmed in the wild exploitation of the Blue Kit Microsoft Windows RDP vulnerability patch in May. So, he identified some problems, some exploitation of the Blue Kit before the attack, before the cadena set attack and Everest attack. So, what we can say about this? Information, that's information, and information, it could be a source of power. So, we are back to the basics, because we tend to think that honeypots is like an old folk, an old tool, but not. It's a useful tool as well nowadays. So back to basics. There are several ways to classify honeypots. In this case, we will do it based on two of its main properties. What is interaction and based on the type of honeypots based on deployment. We have three types of interaction honeypots: low, medium, and high. And based on deployment, we have two: production and research. So, low interaction. So, some authors tend to classify honeypots into two types: low interaction and high interaction. But I like to classify the classification made by Lance Spittner, the author of Honeypots, Tracking Hackers book. If you say we have low interaction that are easy to install, have minimal risk, and have a lot of restrictions, because when in production. And what about the medium interaction honeypots? The medium interaction honeypots offer attackers more ability to interact with the honeypot, more ability than low interactions, but less than high interaction solutions. They can spare certain activity and are designed to give certain responses beyond what a low interaction honeypot will give. So medium interaction offer attackers more ability to interact than low interaction honeypots. An example of a medium interaction honeypot could be a Cody, for example, who has a SSH access and have the possibility of being discovered through pattern of responses. What about how interaction honeypot? Complex to install or deploy, because normally is an environment and real environment, a real service, for example. Capture far more information attacker keys throws, because it's a real environment or a real service, increase the risk. What about honeypots, production honeypots? Are places inside the production network with other production servers by an organization to improve their overall state of security. It used mostly for detecting internal attacks or access. What are the main risks of production honeypots is that suspicious traffic coexists with the legitimate one. What about the research honeypots? That's the main one of a kind of most important honeypots that we have. This kind of honeypots we use at INCIBE. These honeypots collect compact amount of high-value information, discover new tools or tactics, we can try to understand motive and behavior and organization through the attacks we receive on those kinds of honeypots. Develop analysis and forensic skill for us. It also allows the detection of malicious campaigns. So, we know all kinds of honeypots. What about now? We know types of honeypots. What about now? We need to decide what kind of honeypot we need to deploy. So after having clear what kind of honeypot we need, or maybe we don't know yet, which involves deciding what type of honeypot, we have to decide the services to emulate. In this case of in the case of a high interaction honeypots, as I said, it is clear that being a real system, it's vulnerable, but controlled. The treatment is different. So in this case, we will focus on low and medium interaction honeypots. So we must bear in mind that if at first we are not sure what honeypot we need to deploy, a good strategy is that will help us to decide what kind of honeypot we need. There are some tools that allow us to expose ports or services in a controlled way, and to be able to monitor that kind of services. And that tool is artillery from TrustedSec. So that allows us to expose multiple ports and monitor them, in addition to having an alert system. That way, by analyzing which ports of services are the most attacked in our network, we can decide whether or not we are interested in deploying a specific honeypot. For example, we saw that the service most attacked is 22 ports, for example. So maybe we need a Cowrie honeypot. This is, we can see that it's easy to install. It's totally easy to install and to deploy. And you just need to activate whatever service you want to monitor. We see that's all kind of ports that are listening. And I think you don't see very well. You don't look very well at that video, but it is easy to install. So, it's in order to be effective, a honeypot must appear real. That's the main focus for us. A honeypot must be real, enough to attackers to attract their interest, but must, of course, not contain any data or information of real value. This can be a difficult balance. I know this can be a difficult balance to attain, and the honeypot itself must be especially secure, so that it could not be used to compromise other hosts on your network. So we have honeypots in one hand, and what we need to do with all the data we collect or we already gathered from honeypots. One of the good tools for that, to collect, to process all that data, all that amount of data, is to use ELK stack. Why? Because it's open source, it's powerful for the exploitation and graphic visualization, mainly for that. So I was talking about ELK stack, which is Elasticsearch, Lostas, and Kibana, for continuing in the line of using open source tools. What about ELK stack? It's an acronym of three of the open source: Elasticsearch, Lostas, and Kibana. Elasticsearch is the service that is the focus of the Elasticsearch is indexing and storage the data. Lostas is a data aggregation, just aggregate the data and process the data. And Kibana is used mainly for analysis and visualization. So this is how it looks like. This is a real environment of the LK environment. So we have honeypots on the one hand, and we have ELK on the other hand. We can ingest the data directly, not without first doing all the processing we should do on the data, but a tool that can be useful in this kind of task is Teapot. Teapot is just ELK stack plus honeypots. So this is how a teapot looks like. This is the architecture. You can see, or maybe you can see, this is all the honeypots they have. They have compote, cowrie, Dionaea, elastipod, a honeypot for elasticere, a gluten-headed honey trap. There are a lot of honeypots, and they have IDS. They have suricata. They have a monitoring tool as well, and they have another awesome tool, which is useful for all kind of work. So what is a teapot? Teapot is, like I say, it's a collection of different honeypots put together by T-Mobile, but it's an open source project. It comes with a great implementation of ELK stack to visualize all events captured by different honeypots and some other tools. All honeypot in teapot are running Dockerized using Docker. So maybe the people from system department maybe they don't like it to use Docker sometimes, which makes the whole setup quite a lot easier to manage. Teapot itself and all of its containers are now based on Ubuntu server. The system was designed to be low maintenance because it uses Docker. So this, you can see, it's easy to install. It's like install another Linux distribution. You can activate or deactivate what kind of honeypot you can to use. You can to get information from that honeypot. And this is what it looks like. It's the same. It's a ELK environment, so it could have the same visualizations and graphics. And this is another tool for monitoring services in the same server. This is another tool for monitoring services, and this is Spider Food, who is an awesome tool, a very useful awesome tool. So what about if suppose that we don't want to use honeypots because it needs a lot of time. We have another. Well, we need we want to try to hunt in threats. There are another tool that is HELK, because it's HELK that we can try. And what is the HELK? It's one of the first open source hunt platform with advanced analytic capabilities such as SQL, declarative language. They have graphics. They use GraphRange library. They have Jupyter as well, and for machine learning. And they have Apache Spark. This project was developed primarily for research, but due to its flexibility design and core components, it can be deployed in large environment. It's in an early station nowadays, but it's a potential. I think it's a potential tool. So, what about we have the demo? This is a real. Let me show you. This is a real environment. This is what it looks like, a real environment at INCIBE. This is our main console. We have a lot of honeypots deployed in different cities around all the country. And this is what we gather all the information. So, we have some cases. What you need to bear in mind that about the honeypots. we have that you should consult with your legal department, because it's not easy to deploy a honeypot. You need to determine whether there are any legal issues with your organization, with your state, with your even with your country related to the use of honeypots. Why? Because this may include your own liability if your honeypot is compromised and used to attack others, as well as you don't know legally what you can do or can't do about it. For example, you may be able to passively monitor and record all the activity, but may not be able to take any direct or retaliatory action against your attackers, for example. It depends on the country, of what kind of organization you work with. You will also need to consider what is not acceptable as evidence. Should you ever intend to prosecute any attacker? Given all the above, you should consider whether your time and security efforts are better spent configuring, monitoring, and maintaining a honeypot, or it's better configuring and deploying additional security and monitoring on your real servers. So security is always an equation that balances cost, risk, and business need. The answer for each organization is up to you. It's different for whatever organization you are working with. So this is a real case. We got in one of our honeypots, we got a URL that our malware detection system didn't recognize as a malicious, but it's a binary. So that's got our attention, or what is happening here. And we look after that, and we see, yes, we can see the code is indeed a binary. We look after that. This is the command we got at our honeypot. At our Kauri honeypot. We got that URL. So this is our command. We can see that they connect that URL. So we look after that URL. What is that IP? And we saw they have a lot of ports open, and there are FTP. We try to connect anonymous, bingo. We have those binaries, and we see that's the same code we got our sandbox, and a VirusTotal recognized that IP as a malicious one for malware download. So we looked after that binary. We try to get from VirusTotal what kind of binary could be. It was about the DDoS. So we looked after we do after that binary, and we try to get all the code. And we got that this was public online, and they say don't use the telnet scanner. So we search about, we look for that kind of information, and we got that it was a program that was in GitHub, and the same guy who do it, he did as well a tutorial for botnet keyboard. So he was that kind to do as well a tutorial for how to use that kind of code. So, why this was useful for us? Because all those commands we receive on our honeypots, we can create a general rule for detecting that kind of comments or that kind of patterns we receive on our honeypots to be better on detection that kind of patterns, and to receive alerts when we receive that kind of comments on our honeypots. And this was another case about what we found when using honeypots. And this was about threats distributed through IRC channels. And the first phase was an exploitation phase. So in the first phase, has the events received in the honeypot and the connection to the RCA channel, we receive a lot of commands in our honeypots trying to connect to an RC channel to download some codes. So we detect that one, and then we get the to the next phase, and in this phase, the target has already become a bot, or honeypot has already become a bot. And it our honeypot connected to the RC channel, waiting for the reception of commands to perform the actions that the bootmaster want to us we do. So once these commands have been obtained, we have two types of different exploitation. On the one hand, in what we call type 1, a file is obtained binary to do a brute force attack on SSH service, and the other type, they obtain a series of PHP and auxiliary files to send phishing emails. So this kind of bot was trying to send a lot of phishing emails. We got a phishing for an Italian bank. So this is one of the cases we got from honeypots. So in conclusion, honeypots are highly flexible security tools and can be used a variety of different deployments. But it's a tool, not a solution. So we use it. We have a lot of other services on our Intel department, but we use honeypots as a tool to gather information to feed our Intel model. So, but you need to, one of the things that we need to do is feed into your own data, because maybe you don't need a honeypot to use a honeypot. And there's an abundance of tools out there that can help you look for threats on your network and endpoints. But what works best for you is up to you as well. Maybe it's useful for you to use honeypots, or maybe it's useful for you to use a service as such a help, or maybe not that are useful for you. So you need to try to look after that. Scary Casco. Any question? Do you have any question?
There is any question for her? Well, I have just a question for you.
Okay.
What do you recommend for the people that want to start with honeypots?
Sorry?
What do you recommend for the people that want to start with honeypots? How they can start?
you can start trying tools like Teapot, for example, because it's a distro. You just need to install a distro, and you have a lot of honeypots, and that's the way to learn from those. What kind of data? Because maybe you don't know what kind of data you receive on your honeypots. So you try Teapot, and you look. Okay, maybe I have the Iona, but the Iona doesn't have a lot of data. But maybe Kauri or another honeypot, it's more interesting for me. And tools like Teapot are useful for that, for searching, for looking for what is useful for you. What is useful for you on your environment? I mean, you need to on your system, because maybe you are a public organization and you are another type of target, and you will receive another type of attack. So maybe it's better to use a tool like Teapot.